will you pledge to support whoever the Democratic nominee is, whoever it is, whether it's you, whether it's President Biden?
Oh, of course I'm not going to do that. I'm not
going to do that.
No, of course I'm not.
So
listen,
if you don't get the nomination, you won't support President Biden?
I don't know what I'll do. Let's see let's see what happens in this campaign. You know what? My plan is to win this election, and I don't have a plan B.
Okay.
All right, that's Elizabeth Vargas and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at our nationally televised NewsNation Town Hall last night, where they covered a number of important issues. So let's bring back our political contributor, Sean Spicer. Sean, thank you for your time. Let's just start with that exchange that we just heard. What did you make of his answer?
I mean, I get it. A candidate's always going to say that they think they're going to win, but the reality is that, I mean, if you're running to be a Democrat, I would assume the Democratic nominee, I would assume you'd always want whomever that ultimate nominee is, whether it's you or somebody else, to beat the Republican, and vice versa. Republicans would want to beat the Democrats. So we're seeing this on both sides, where there's a failure for people who are running to admit that they'll support their own party's nominee. I just wonder how many of their primary voters care anymore. It used to be something that would be instinctive. You'd say, of course, I'm going to support the nominee. But we're seeing this on both sides now, Nichole, that you have candidates that say, I'm not going to guarantee that I'm going to support the ultimate nominee. I think that really tells you where we are politically, that there's a lot of people that don't necessarily care about the badge anymore.
Yeah, a lot of people who certainly say, listen, if I'm not the nominee, I can run as a third party. Sean, we were able to hear where Kennedy stands on a lot of important issues important to voters. Where do you think he, though, made the best case for his candidacy and maybe humanized himself in the best light?
You know, it's an interesting question, because I think a lot of the discussion that he had, I mean, including like things like on the border, he sounded more Republican than he did Democrat. And I think that he may have last night had a broader appeal to a section of voters, but I just don't know that he made that much of an impact for Democratic voters, which is where he needs to make the biggest impact right now if he really wants to pose a threat to Joe Biden. But remember, I've made this point before. I think where Kennedy could pose the biggest threat is in one of the early states, particularly in New Hampshire, where they do have a more libertarian, live free or die mentality there. And it's more of a moderate Democrat than, say, a hardcore progressive Democrat that you see in a lot of other states, a lot of blue states. So I think that he could have picked up some steam in New Hampshire, which I think will embarrass the president.
So, Sean, he talked about several of his controversial positions, Wi-Fi and cancer, vaccines and autism. Do you think his positions overshadow his campaign, or was he able to potentially convince some people that, hey, maybe he has a point?
I think that what Elizabeth did last night was really get beyond the headlines that people know him for. Like I said, he had a good exchange on the border. He talked about himself, his father a little. And I think that for people who only know the Kennedy name or know him for his stance on vaccines or maybe the environment, they got to see a more fuller picture of him. And I think that benefits him, because right now, if you can get 14 to 20% off the little that people know about you, and you can appeal to them on a bunch of other issues that they may not have heard of you ever discussed before, that's a benefit to him. So I will be interested to see in the subsequent polling that comes out what this did, because it wasn't just that exchange on NewsNation. It got a ton of coverage in the media. There's a lot of social media clips of exchanges between him and Elizabeth and other parts of the town hall that have gone viral. And I think that this potentially has the opportunity to broaden that understanding of who he is beyond those two main things that people know him for.
Yeah, it was certainly a great exchange to watch. All right, NewsNation political contributor Sean Spicer, thank you. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.